Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. Retired Army General V.K. Singh once again finds himself at the center of a major controversy. The revelations in a report published in the Indian Express today have brought out some serious allegations, including an attempt to topple the Omar Abdullah government in Jammu and Kashmir. These acts, done apparently by misusing the Secret Service funds of the military intelligence, are seen as not only illegal but also dangerous from the point of view of security implications for the country. This was apparently undertaken by a controversial military intelligence unit set up by General V.K. Singh when he was the army chief. The unit is also said to have financed certain people in Jammu and Kashmir to undertake certain tasks, including filing cases against the present army chief Bikram Singh. All this has come out in an inquiry conducted by secret board of officers led by Lieutenant General Vinod Bhatia. However, the revelations against General V.K. Singh is being dubbed by him as well as the opposition BJP, of which he became a member last week, as vendetta. Meanwhile, the government, while admitting that such an inquiry report exists, is however yet to decide whether a CBI inquiry has to be ordered. We will today discuss the various aspects of the serious charges made against General V.K. Singh and its implications. To discuss this, I have with me Lieutenant General Kadyan, retired Vice Chief of Army Staff, Ajay Prasad, former Defence Secretary, Government of India, and Saikat Datta, Resident Editor, DNA. Welcome to all of you. First, let me come to you, General. Is this report a very disturbing report? Does it disturb you as well as, do you think the army as a whole would be very disturbed about this report?
Yes, Girish, the army would be disturbed. As an army man, former army man, I am very disturbed. Some of the allegations that have come out in the papers are very, very serious in nature.
Right.
Whether they're true or false, only a probe will show.
Right.
But the nature of allegations is extremely serious and hurts the very basic roots of the army's functioning in our country.
Right.
Because the allegations go well beyond the charter that is given to our army.
Right.
Indulging in toppling governments, as you just mentioned, or even using funds for a kind of a personal purpose.
Right.
I mean, the first allegation, I find it totally unbelievable that the army would involve. If that is the allegation that is found to be true, then what is the difference between us and the neighboring army?
Absolutely.
This is exactly what they're doing.
Right.
I personally find it unbelievable. I have never heard of it. And I do hope the probe will find that this is not a justified allegation. It must be probed. The army must come out and declare. It's not a question of one General V.K. Singh or ABC. It is the institution of the army that I'm more worried about.
Right.
Today, in the common man's mind, the army stands accused of very serious wrongdoing.
Absolutely. But I want you to tell me, military intelligence, this is something which common people don't understand. What is its charter? What is its duty? What does it do? Of course, it has secret service funds which we are now being told has been misused and things like that. Are these funds at any level? Are they, do they come into any scrutiny? How is it used? Who authorizes the use of such funds?
Okay, Girish. There are various kinds of intelligence agencies in the country.
Right.
Like RNAW deals with external intelligence.
Right.
IB deals with internal intelligence. MI has a very limited role.
Military intelligence.
Yeah, MI is the military intelligence. Its function is only counterintelligence, that is to prevent enemy agents from penetrating our own army personnel.
Okay.
Number two, it also gathers some kind of human intelligence in scenarios which are affected by the insurgency problem.
Right.
And third limited role is that across the border to a limited tactical depth, maybe 15-20 kilometers, it gets information on the topography and the enemy deployment and layout.
Right.
Beyond that, it has no role. The second part about the funding, all intelligence units have some discretionary funds.
Right.
Because the sources are secret, they cannot be put on the paper.
Right.
And of course, there are responsible people handling those assignments, so some kind of trust is always there. The chance of misuse is also there.
Right.
But there some amount of discretion is there in all intelligence agencies.
What are the chances of this? What are the checks and balances, if any, to see that these secret funds are not misused? Are there any such checks and balances at all?
Yes. I mean, they are not handled by one individual. They are handled by a group.
Right.
Secondly, this unit which is now under the scanner.
Yes, technical is called the Technical Services Division.
TSD.
Yes.
When you raise a new unit in the army, there is a procedure laid down.
Right.
The first step is a government sanction. Second step is the issue of a statistical number. It's called
Right.
SUS.
Yes.
Which is a start point for the accounting people like the CDA to start paying the salaries.
Right.
Number 3 is the preparation of a WE, war establishment, which lays down how many people will it have, of what rank structure. And the follow-up next to it is the WET, war equipment table. How many vehicles, how many radio sets, how many weapons.
Apparently, this.
If all this has been done, then the government is in the know of it. If it has not been done, then it is an illegal unit.
The reports, whatever we have heard so far, is that this unit was set up without the knowledge of the government or without permission from the government.
Yeah, that is what the report
The
indicates.
report says that.
And if that is the case, then
there is a
the
serious
raising
problem
itself
there.
was illegal.
That itself is illegal. Let me get Mr. Ajay Prasad. Mr. Ajay Prasad, these kind of units, in your own experience, can they be set up in such clandestine manner by an army chief or anybody in the army?
I have not heard of this kind of creation of a unit during my experience with the Ministry of Defense.
Right.
But as General Kadyan was just mentioned,
Yes.
If it was being formally and overtly established, then it would necessarily have to have government approval and all the various processes that were just discussed.
Right.
Now, apparently, from what the media reports have talked about, no such thing was done.
Absolutely.
So it was probably done in a clandestine or a covert fashion without the knowledge of the government, if we have to believe the media reports. And if that's it so, then whatever the purpose and the objectives of setting up such a unit, the whole process is vitiated by the fact that it doesn't carry the authorization which it should have had if it was a legitimate bona fide service to be provided.
Okay, Mr. Ajay Prasad, this report, the report of this board of inquiry headed by Lieutenant General Bhatia, is apparently supposed to have been given as far back as in March or even earlier. Why do you think that this report has been lying in the ministry or apparently in the ministry, and no action seems to have been taken all this time?
See, this is, if we again going by the kind of story that has come out in the media today, the allegations are of an extremely sensitive and a very disturbing nature.
Absolutely.
Now, this completely shakes the very foundation on which the relationship between the military
Right.
and the political executive, the
Right.
civilian political executive is based. It changes and it upsets that, especially the allegation that, a duly elected government was sought to be toppled
Right.
by the army, somebody in the army.
Right.
Now, those are such extremely sensitive matters that I'm not surprised that the government would move very cautiously on it,
Okay.
make their own inquiries and be very careful before coming to any definitive conclusion. Now, but I completely agree with that. It is in the interest of everybody and most of all of the army itself,
Right.
that an impartial, fair and a speedy inquiry is done to clear everybody's name. If those who have misused it should be brought to book, but otherwise army's good name should not be smeared by such allegations.
Mr. Prasad, so what you're trying to say is this, what some people are saying is a delay, a deliberate delay on the part of the government for not having. In any case, this report was not given by the government. I think it seems to be a legitimate scoop by a reporter of a newspaper. So you think that this delay from March till now, that no action apparently has been taken, is something which is can be justified by the government?
No, the report also goes on to say that the National Security Advisor has been holding meetings on this subject.
Right.
So I'm surely there's some kind of a examination of this is going on
Right.
at various levels in the government.
Okay.
And as I said, of matters of such sensitivity, would government would proceed very cautiously in such a matter.
Okay. Saikat, coming to you, does this report shock you? Was this something which you people who follow the defense ministry very closely, were you aware of it? Because if going through one of the reports which I was going through just now, it says that in December last year itself, this TSD had been disbanded almost.
Correct. See, this report, the Indian Express report is a brilliant story which a very credible journalist has brought out.
Right.
But the actual report, which has purportedly been authored by General V.K. Bhatia, raises several questions in my mind.
Right.
And these are very important if we are to ascertain the truth of this issue. First, let's look at this allegation about the off-the-air interceptor being purchased by the army.
Right.
As far as October 2010,
Right.
the Director General of Foreign Trade, which is a part of the Ministry of Commerce, had clearly issued a notification stating that off-the-air interceptors cannot be imported by anybody, and if it has to be done, then the clearance has to be taken from the Ministry of Home Affairs as well as the Ministry of Commerce, and only then these can be purchased.
Right.
That is the law.
Right.
So are we then alleging that whatever the secret unit was, that it had enough funds and wherewithal to not only smuggle in this equipment after purchasing it from Singapore, but could also hoodwink the customs, the Director General of Foreign Trade and the Home Ministry?
Right.
My reading is that that is not possible. As far as the J&K issue is concerned,
one
why
second.
would... Yes.
Sorry, Saikat, before we go into the J&K issue, these off-air interceptors, the reports say that they were destroyed.
First of all, let's look at whether these can be purchased in the first place so casually and be smuggled in by a government body.
Right.
If you have a notification from the Director General of Foreign Trade banning the import of this equipment without clear sanction, that means you are alleging that it must have been smuggled in. If it is being smuggled in, then are so many agencies, including the Research and Analysis Wing, the Intelligence Bureau, the Customs Department, the Home Ministry, were they all sleeping? If
No, one second, sorry, Saikat. This notification of the Ministry of Commerce, you say, came in October 2010. Is it possible that these equipments had already been imported before that?
According to this report, the equipment was bought much after the notification came out.
Okay.
And I remember that because in May 2010, when I was with Outlook, we had exposed the use of off-the-air interceptors about being used for political espionage.
Right.
The second point is, as far as the J&K issue is concerned, if funds have been sent, why would they go after one independent MLA when the NC and the Congress have a razor-thin majority as it is?
Absolutely.
So here is, you would have to then use that 1.2 crores which has allegedly been paid.
Right.
Then you would have to, convert not only people from the National Conference but also from the Congress party, which I think is beyond the realm of even imagination.
Okay.
So I have serious questions about this report.
Okay. And what about the another major issue that, this PIL which was filed against General Bikram Singh, the present army chief, by an NGO in Kashmir. Isn't that also a matter of great concern?
See, that of course is a matter of huge concern. See, any of these allegations taken individually is a matter of great concern. There is no doubt about that. My only worry is that if these allegations can be very easily be proved correct, and the right person to prove them correct is not the board of officers, not the PMO, but an investigative agency like the Central Bureau of Investigation, which should purely, and I should underline this, purely go by evidence in the matter. Because if you are not able to prove any of this, you will be destroying an institution like the army and the military at large, which is a major concern for me at this juncture.
Absolutely, but Saikat, just one more thing. TSD, was it set up with the report says that TSD was set up without taking the approval of the government or the defense ministry. What is your take on that? Was it set up with the right in the right manner, or was it something which as the report says was done very covertly?
There are 2 or 3 points that I'll quickly make. One, In my opinion, it is impossible to create any unit in the military. As General Kadyan has rightly pointed out, there is an elaborate procedure.
Right.
On top of it, this was headed by a full colonel, a Colonel Hani Bakshi.
Right.
Can you hide people from the payment and account of defense, from the AG's branch, from any other branches who deal with every personnel in the military of such a senior rank with majors and havaldars and JCOs for such a long time? That's point number one. I don't think that's possible, that's impossible. The second point is that here is a unit which had already been mentioned in the media much before it was disbanded.
Right.
And this was done during General VK Singh's time. The media had already spoken about this and everybody had accepted, including General VK Singh, that this had been created by him openly in the media. If such is the case, then where is the secrecy about it? And the government has known about it all along. Why didn't they act upon it then?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have raised very important. Do you have anything more to say on this?
Just my point here is that, you see, as far as my information is concerned, the earlier NSA, Mr. M.K. Narayan, had specifically asked for this unit, and that is an important point which I believe is there in the file note.
2005, 2006, M.K. Narayan seems to have asked for this kind of off-air interceptors.
Yes.
General Kadyan, you know, all this is fine. Now that if as Saikat says that, you know, General VK Singh had admitted openly that he has set up this kind of a unit, why is it that the government did not act, during that period? One. Second thing is, there is no doubt about in anybody's mind that these are all a board of officers inquiry was set up to look into these things. So there must have been something for that board to look into. It's not that, you know, all these things are just matters in the air.
Yes, your first question, Girish, that why didn't the government put a stop to it? If they were aware that this unit has been raised unauthorizedly, if they were aware that this is indulging in activities which are beyond the army charter,
which they may not have been aware of.
If they were not aware, then perhaps it can be excused, but if they were aware, then it is a failure of the government not to nip it in the bud.
Right.
The second question you asked was?
The second question is about, you know, this if this board of inquiry was set up.
The army,
so there must have been certain allegations, certain things for the board to look into.
Obviously, there was prima facie some indications that the matter needs some kind of a probe.
Right.
Now, the army, what you're calling board of officers or court of inquiry,
yes,
has a very restrictive charter.
And is it supposed to be secret?
Yeah, it is secret.
Okay.
It cannot call civilian witnesses. It cannot call for mobile telephone records.
Okay.
It cannot even interrogate people. It can only question people.
Right.
Therefore, a probe is required by a higher agency. But army is basically a fact-finding mission. They have found some facts. If that report, I do not know, it must be secret. But if the newspaper reports are to go by, obviously some wrongdoing has been found by the Army's Court of Inquiry, including the fact that some 8 crore rupees are unaccounted for.
Out of 20 crores, which is apparently seems to have been spent, 8 crores are unaccounted for. That's one thing. And second is, the other thing about what I asked Saikat also, if this 2 crores or 2.38 crores given to some NGO which has links with another NGO which filed the PIL against Bikram Singh. Is this, this is something completely going out of the charter of, even if we assume that this TSD was set up with the full knowledge of the government.
Yes, that is absolutely. Money is one aspect.
Right.
Because some 8 crore may have been misused.
Right.
That needs a probe. But what is more important is the nature of activities which this TSD was indulging in.
Absolutely.
Both of these, that is toppling a civilian government, if
Right.
the allegation is true, that is. Second, today the probe is very much a national requirement to clear the name of the army. Army should be interested. General VK Singh should be interested so that his name is cleared. So the government must not shy away from carrying a probe just because people might construe it as a political vendetta, which may or may not be there. In today's climate, this kind of allegation is bound to happen.
Yes.
With the unpopularity of the present government and with the anti-incumbency factor, but that must not shy the
that
government.
must not come in the way of the
government is responsible to come out with the truth.
Yes, Saikat.
Just one quick question. General Kadyan has again mentioned about the TSD.
Yes.
As early as 2011-12, there was a report which had come out making allegations that the TSD was used and the off-the-air interceptor to tap the phones of the defense minister.
Absolutely.
So if a report has come out and the TSD is in question well during halfway through General VK Singh's tenure, then where is the question of anybody saying that, nobody knew about this and the government didn't know about this? Not only was the TSD known in public and the general had already accepted it while in service that such a unit exists, even allegations of wrongdoing was there in the public domain. So why did the government have to wait for so long, especially in a case when it has the defense minister's security and his privacy at stake? And it has enough bodies like the Intelligence Bureau, and as far as I know, the Intelligence Bureau did investigate it and they did not find any credence in the story.
In the story, as far as the snooping on the defense minister
Correct.
is concerned. Okay. Well, Mr. Ajay Prasad, some of the questions which have been raised by Saikat just now and also by Raj Kadyan, do you think that the government somewhere went a little slow on this, or as you said earlier, was it so sensitive a matter that they couldn't take a decision and just let things go a little cold?
No, if we look at it in two parts. Firstly, what Saikat just mentioned, the fact about this story about stooping on the defense minister's office and some other officials of the defense ministry is concerned, which came out in 2011. Now there, as was mentioned, IB did look into it and found no credence in it. So probably when it either General VK Singh or whoever was explaining the matter to the defense minister, I presume must have given a credible and a satisfactory explanation for the purposes for which this TSD must have been set up. Now, if that was so, then the government and the minister, the defense minister and the defense ministry probably accepted that explanation and allowed this whole setup to continue till some further time when it was officially announced that it has been disbanded. The other part is this report of General Bhatia, which has been submitted some months back. Why no action has been taken there? There, I suppose, as we can see from the report, that certain consultations between the NSA, I presume between the Ministry of Defense, etc., have been going on, and I can understand that government wants to move very cautiously on it because it has very far-reaching ramifications.
Absolutely. General Kadyan, do you agree that the government is going very surely and very slowly, because it, as Mr. Ajay Prasad says, it has several ramifications. One. Second thing is, and an important question comes to my mind, when this TSD was being disbanded, is it normal for such units to be to be, if let us assume, because from what Saikat is saying, that everybody knew that TSD exists. The General VK Singh himself had said it openly, and during that whole issue of defense ministers, defense minister's office being bugged and all that, all these had come out. So why do you think that this was disbanded if it was a legally set up unit?
Yes, Girish, first.
Is it normal for such units to be set up and disbanded in such short periods?
No, that lends credence to the theory that it was not approved by the government. The snooping may have been found to be incorrect by the IB, but that proved that there is a unit like this exists and they have the equipment to carry out snooping. And government should have immediately put a stop to it. They should not have waited. Why the government waited so long is something which...
the report suggests that in December of 2012, this unit was being disbanded.
No, unit disbanding is one aspect.
Yes.
Why was it raised? If it was
why
raised,
was it raised? Yes.
And why was that equipment, as Saikat said, that equipment is not allowed to be imported?
Yes.
All those matters should have been investigated.
Yes.
And perhaps with greater speed. Why the government showed laxity in it, I am not in a position to make any comment on it. But the government should have been more prompt, because this is a very, very serious matter that had come to light.
Okay, Mr. Ajay Prasad, these are very important questions. Why do you think the speed was not there in this inquiry? This whole issue of TSD being the TSD being set up and these equipments being imported, and as if what Saikat say is correct, then it was done after the Ministry of Commerce had given this notification that you can't import it.
See, if this was set up without proper authorization,
Yes.
then the whole thing has been done in a very disturbing manner.
Yes.
And including the import of the equipment in a clandestine fashion.
Yes.
Now, I'm sure the government at that time should have acted fast on it and insisted, once the story broke in 2011,
Right.
it should have insisted that this unit be disbanded and whatever equipment, etc., it had would be confiscated and given to some legitimate user if it was such was the case.
Right.
Now, I can only presume what I said a little while earlier,
Right.
that certain credible explanations must have been given by the army authorities at that time to the defense minister to say what about the purposes and the way this unit was functioning.
Right.
And probably I can only conjecture at this stage that maybe those explanations were considered by the defense minister and found acceptable at least for some more time.
Okay.
Till finally in 2012 decision was taken to disband it.
Okay. Saikat, I want you, right at the beginning, you made one statement that, this is a report which has been published in newspaper and written by a correspondent who has high credibility. But, all these questions are still cropping up. You think that, there is a hue and cry about how and why, the timing of this report and things like that. Do you see any element of vendetta in this, as some people seem to be suggesting?
No, especially considering the kind of journalist we are speaking about, I have no doubt in my mind that the journalist was doing an extremely credible piece of work and we should be grateful to the journalist for exposing this.
Right.
My questions are about the original report, and there I have serious issues, especially because I do not see any evidence that has been cited which will prove or even give indication. Now, I could very easily set up a board of officers, whereas the right purpose, the right method to do this in the military is to set up a court of inquiry, not a board of officers.
Okay.
It's very strange that a court of inquiry was not set up. And after that, the report does not go to an investigative agency which has the powers to quickly investigate all this, including call records and so on and so forth, and instead goes to the PMO, because the PMO is not an investigative agency.
Absolutely.
And the PMO also has the Intelligence Bureau to investigate, and the Intelligence Bureau has been aware about the TSD and the so-called allegations for almost a year and a half.
Okay, so Saikat, you think that now, despite all that, a proper inquiry by a credible organization needs to be done on this?
See, in any allegation, you have to provide evidence because the allegations are so serious.
Yes.
And the damage will be so far-reaching that it will probably completely cripple the military for decades.
Okay.
So therefore, if we do not have an evidence-based inquiry where everything is either credited or discredited, then we have a serious problem on our
Okay,
hands.
yes, last words to you.
Yeah.
Kadyan.
Girish, from what I know, we were talking about the Minister of Defense.
Yes.
After the Kargil committee report was submitted, since the role of all the intelligence agencies have to be dovetailed, that tasking of the intelligence agency is not with the MOD.
Okay.
Even the MI tasking is done by the Cabinet Committee on Security.
Security, okay.
That is the point I wanted to make.
So that is where the problem lies, you think, because of these delays and things like that.
Possible. I'm not trying
And
to
also,
bail
if
the government
there
out.
has been any way there has been any act of omission on the part of the ministry or anybody, it is because of this, you think?
No, it could be one of the reasons that they must be passing of the report in there, but I still say that the government should have acted with greater speed, as Mr. Ajay Prasad also agrees.
Okay.
It's a very serious matter, couldn't have been brushed under the carpet in such a
Absolutely.
manner.
I think on that note, we need to end. Everybody agrees that this is a thing which cannot be ignored. This is a story, this report has to be taken forward. The government has already said that it is looking into the whole thing before it takes a final decision on how it should go ahead. But as all my panelists here say, there doesn't seem to be any other option but to go in for a proper inquiry to see that all these charges which have been made and all this, the cloud which has now come over the entire the army itself needs to be cleared. And in the meanwhile, if the government has to face charges that it is vendetta, and it is something which the government will have to bear upon itself. But the fact of the matter is that an inquiry is absolutely necessary, as all my panelists say. Thanks to all my guests, Mr. Ajay, Prasad, Saikat, Datta, and Lieutenant General Raj Kadyan. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture same time on Monday. Meanwhile, have a great time.